driver off the deck for Corey Connors.
Here's driver off the deck for Victor Hovland.
So the driver off the deck. I know you would try this, right?
Oh my, what a shot.
Just to be able to hit it off the deck and get that thing down and fly it in running.
You have to put your foot on the gas. You pull out the driver off the deck and you put it on the green all the way up the hill.
Welcome back to another episode of Off the Deck. My name is Josh Decker. I'm really excited today to talk to somebody who I think is one of the most interesting men in the world, Mr. Dave Kuhn. Dave, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to join. I was fascinated about having you on because of the life you live and how frequently you venture across the pond to play golf in Scotland and in the UK. So take me back to like the first time you ever went on one of those trips. How did that come to be? I've got a whole list of questions of just things I want to hear from you because I've never played in Scotland or in the UK at all. I've played in Portugal, but that's not anything that anybody's romantic about. But how did that first come to be for you?
Yeah. So, I was kind of really into whiskey for a while and went over there a couple of times to go to like the Islay Whiskey Festival, right? So Islay is like this island off the western coast of Scotland that's like famous for being called Whiskey Island. It's like, there's 3,000 people that live there, but there's 10 distilleries now. I think there used to be like 40, like 100 years ago. But anyway, I would go over there for the whiskey festival a couple of times. And then one year, a buddy of mine that lives in Athens and I were like, we should go to the whiskey festival. And then there's a golf course on the island called the Macquarie, and we should play there and then like try and play somewhere else. And so it was 2021 when this happened. And, COVID was still sort of in full swing. So the only options we had were to play that golf course. And then we could get on like one golf course in Glasgow. And we got back and we were like, man, that was so fun. We should just go back next year and just make it a golf trip. And it's kind of funny because my wife was into that idea because it's just, you're not just drinking whiskey the entire time you're there. And we the next year went back and sort of made it a little bit of both. And then progressively more and more, we've just turned it more and more into like just going to play golf and then having a dram of whiskey afterwards. So, just especially if you go at the right time in Scotland, you can go and play 36 holes easily, wherever you are, and then still have enough time to hang out, have a beer, and then get up and do it again. And you feel great. You go walk, 8-10 miles in a day and have a couple of glasses of whiskey or whatever, and then go to bed and wake up feeling like a new man. So it's a good time.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite course over there right now?
I'm kind of wearing the hat right now. I figured I'd represent, but it's called North Berwick West Links. It's the 13th oldest golf course in the world. It's in East Lothian, which is kind of like around the bend from St. Andrews, about 25 minutes east of Edinburgh. And it's kind of just real quirky. It's not like the hardest golf course in the world, but it's not easy because it is a links golf course. But it's really famous for having the original Redan hole. So like the 15th hole there is the original Redan, which is like the most copied golf hole in the world. And then it has one of the original Biarritz holes. So, like the 8th hole at Sweden's Cove is a Biarritz. Well, this one's even more kind of extreme just because the valley in the middle is very pronounced compared to the rest of it, and it's not as big. And there's another hole. It's my favorite golf hole in the world. It's called Pitt, and it's this, kind of mid-length par 3 or par 4, but the green is divided from the fairway by like an ancient like sheep wall. Like the entire green is divided except for like one little place to walk through, but the entire green has a wall in front of it. And so the second shot, the challenge is to hit it over the wall and land it on the green. And fortunately, it's a punch bowl green, so everything kind of collects. But it's like if you can't chip over the wall, you're
dead.
But yeah, it's super fun. I mean, it's kind of, for as old of a golf course it is, it's very on the quirky side, and I think it kind of turns some people off. But if you like quirk in golf courses, you can't beat it. It's great.
So how many times now have you been over there?
pretty much every year since 21.
Okay.
So yeah, 5 times. I've been fortunate to make some friends over there, which makes it a little bit easier. You're not having to, for the most part, not having to worry about finding a hotel room, stuff like that. And they play golf, so you have friends to hang out with, places to stay. And that's the great thing about it. I mean, one thing I've learned getting older is like I'm just not afraid to talk to anyone. And so you'll be in a bar over there and start striking up a conversation about golf. It's like anywhere else. And then all of a sudden you're often chatting about whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I could get you on that golf course next week if you're still around, that kind of a thing. So that happens a lot.
That's really cool. And is there a specific region? You mentioned the island. Is there a specific region of Scotland where you're spending most of your time when you're going? Again, I've never been over there, unfortunately.
Well, the great thing about Scotland is there's different regions, right? And like different regions have different pockets of golf. So you could spend one time, like one entire trip in one region and still not run out of places to play. I've done kind of the madman thing where, like, one year, I think it was like 23, we went to the Isle of Whiskey Festival, but when we got off the plane in Edinburgh, we drove all the way to Dunaverty. And you've heard of Dunaverty probably because we both know Jim Hartzell.
Yeah, Jim Hartzell.
Yeah, that's his baby. And so that's a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive, depending on. But my move was to let's get off the plane in the morning, drive all the way there, play golf, and chase the sunlight, and then stay in Machrihanish, which there's Machrihanish and Mac Dunes, the sort of newer golf course. It's still like 20 years old. So you can kind of start there. And then we got on the ferry, went to Isla. We're there for 2 days, got off the ferry, and then we drove all over, like across the entire length of Scotland, and stopped and played Castle Stewart along the way, which is now Cabot Highlands. Everyone still calls it Castle Stewart. And then that was like at 2 p.m. We played there at 2 p.m. and then got in the car and drove all the way to Cullen and spent the night in Cullen, which is the far east coast of Scotland. So we basically drove like 12 hours across the country in one day and stopped and played 18 holes along the way. And it's just kind of trying to tick off different courses that you think are cool. And but it's definitely a strenuous way of doing it. And if you're not used to driving on the other side of the road, it can be a little harrowing. But once you do it a few times, you spend about 10 minutes just saying left over and over again in your head.
Right.
And then you can kind of get the swing of it again.
What blew my mind about what the story, the itinerary you just shared, is that you got off the plane after flying on a red eye across the pond and immediately grabbed your sticks and went and played. I don't think I've ever done that. How was that? How was the body just getting off of a plane and going straight to the links?
I mean, I've never been able to I'd rather say I've been able to like sleep a little bit on international flights. So I usually get at least like 4 or 5 hours. It's not the best sleep in the world, but it's enough to like, okay, it's the morning time. Let me make myself adjust. And the best thing about doing that is if you get off the plane and then you go chase the sunset playing golf, then you're kind of like forcing yourself to be on local time,
Yeah.
It's definitely important, I think, to get at least a decent amount of sleep when you're on a trip like this, just because you are walking. I mean, there's no using a golf cart in Scotland, and I kind of prefer that. But, most of the golf courses, with the exception of some, are fairly flat. There are some elevation changes, but, again, it's just you're getting in your steps. It's physical. It's like, the truest form of the sport, I think. And it's just, by the end of the 2 weeks, if you're there that long, you feel awesome. You're just out there grinding. And you kind of have to, when you're playing links golf, you're subject to the firm and fast conditions. There's going to be wind. There might be rain, possibly. Usually there probably is, but I've been pretty lucky in that regard. So you kind of just set your expectations, in the boot of the car and just go have fun. That's what it's all about. So I've always been very grateful to be able to do that and go over there and play the game. And, it's just all about having fun.
So
maybe having a match, with your friends. But.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had a round where the elements over there? I mean, we see this stuff every year at the Open. That's always one of the plot lines is what kind of weather they're going to have. Have you ever had a round like that where it was raining sideways and pins were bending over because the wind was howling so much?
I've been really lucky in terms of rain. I've seen, videos of you guys going out to Bandon, and that's been way worse than anything I've ever experienced in Scotland. I think it's really just about the time of the year you go. I've definitely gotten rained on a little bit, but nothing, torrential. I've definitely we played a golf course in East Lothian called Gillen, and they have like 3 or 4 golf courses there. And we played the main one, Gillen number 1, and it was like, no joke, like just blowing 40 miles an hour the entire time. It was the craziest, like
That's
windy
brutal.
round I've ever played in. Yeah. Uh, it was like, this is like a 6 club kind of wind kind of thing, like hitting driver, like a 200-yard par 3 or something. It's just wild.
Yeah, and that you mentioned that trip to Bandon, and that's when I have no problem admitting that I walked off of Pacific Dunes because it was sleeting into my face. And I mean, I hit a ball that had just a little bit of left to right on it, and it ended up 400 yards in the ocean. And
Wow.
I'm like, I'm hitting and then closing my eyes because I don't want ice pelting me in my in my retina. And it's just like,
Right.
yeah, guys, like I will let y'all have this. You can have the crown of actually finishing this round of golf because I'm paying to be here and like want to enjoy this. And every stitch of clothing that I have on right now is soaked, and
Yeah.
I'm cold and I'm in pain. Like there's no redeeming quality here that I'm gonna be like thrilled to share that I've finished this round of golf. And there was standing water on the greens. Um,
And I think that's kind of like the nightmare scenario for some of these things. Like, some people wait their entire life to go play like the old course, for
yeah,
instance. And I just can't imagine like you get there and you just have to grin and bear it, like you finally get on this place that's like a legend, and then like the conditions just turn completely south. But I don't know if I could ever walk off the old course if I'd never played it before, but it's just kind of just how it works out sometimes, I guess. But that's when you just have to like be like, I'm just out here having fun. There's no expectation here.
right.
Just hopefully I don't lose every ball in my bag.
Yeah, and there might be something a little bit nostalgic also about playing the old course, just because of. I mean, we've all seen the videos. I think is it Cypress Point, where the
Oh yeah.
weather out there can just get diabolical. And like, oh, you get
Yeah.
your one chance to play Cypress Point, and here's the weather. Like, are you? And that would suck. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what else to say about it. Like, that's just kind of the hand you're dealt. And hopefully you have a host if you're at somewhere like Cyprus who's like, hey, you know what? Sorry about this. I'll have you back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the old course, I think some of that would be fun to lean into of like, okay, this is potentially the conditions that they're going to play it in, like that Scotty and Rory are going to see. And what is it in 5 years from now, I guess, when they're going back to the old course. But yeah, it just,
I mean, and there's something to be said about playing in conditions. Like I kind of like playing in the wind. Now there's just a certain threshold where it's like too windy, but if you've got like a 20-mile-an-hour breeze and you can, hit a draw into it and like work the ball a little bit, like, a lot of that kind of, for me at least, is hit and hope and make sure I, hopefully know what I'm doing, which most of the time it doesn't work out. But when it does, then you're like, I figured out this game. Amazing.
yeah.
So I think it just depends. It's all context, really.
So for somebody who is going on their first trip to Scotland, I would consider you a seasoned golf traveler, especially as many times as you've been over there, and you've got Hartsfield Jackson in your backyard, right?
Oh yeah.
It's an easy hop for you. But what would you, just if you're someone planning your first trip, what would your advice be for someone looking to do that? And I'm taking
I
this
would.
in because I'm eager to get one on the books. I want to go over there so bad.
Yeah, I'm not the first person to ever say this, but there's plenty of off the beaten path golf courses there that are as good as anything here you can play in the United States. I mean, like Dunaverty, it's quirky, it's not very long, it's great. I'd say my biggest piece of advice would be, everyone's going to have their bucket list courses, the place they've heard of 1,000 times that everyone said you have to play there. Somewhere like Royal Dornick, I honestly haven't been able to play it. My buddy Cullen from Athens and our friend that lives over there got to play it. And the timing just didn't work out for me. But there's plenty of golf courses around a place like that, like Brora and Tane and all these other places that are not, going to cost you $300 to play, but are going to cost you 50 pounds to play or 100 pounds to play. And they're fantastic, and they're like true links golf courses that are just not, you know, at the top of top 100 lists, stuff like that. And there's just good golf everywhere. So what I would say is if you've never been there before, pick a region and just explore every single golf course you can in the region. And, like you look up top 100 golf courses or whatever and kind of read and see what feels appealing to you and, read some reviews and stuff like that. But just don't go chasing the top 100 unless that's just your thing. Like there's plenty of good golf to be had. I mean, especially in a place like East Lothian, there's North Berwick, there's Muirfield. Those are kind of the sort of heavy hitters in the region. But then there's, Long Nidri is kind of like almost like a little parkland course, but it's super fun. It's not very expensive. You can find a member to take you out there. There's Kilspindy. That's the other thing I would say too about a lot of Scottish golf is they have a cool model there where they're able to subsidize their member fees for the people that live there and are members of the golf course, which are relatively inexpensive. I think if you're a member at North Berwick, it's like 1,500 pounds a year.
That's it.
And that's it. But what they do is they charge visitors like $350 to play every tee time.
Okay.
So, if you know a member, which I'm lucky enough to know a member, so it doesn't cost me that much, but you can go and play any of these golf courses. Like you can play Muirfield on the 2 visitor days they have during the week and have the full experience. But, you're as a visitor going to pay like you're going to go play Kiowa here in the States. It's not quite that expensive, but it's like on that level. And that's how they subsidize all these memberships, because the memberships they're legit golf clubs. So all of that is to say, like, you can get on pretty much anywhere over there. I mean, even, like the Ilsa course, I think you can still play for, a certain fee. But that would be my advice. Just, don't be like, I have to play the old course. I have to play, Royal Dornick. I have to go hit up all the, the golf courses that people who might just be casually into golf may have heard of. Just try and find where the locals go and play, because a lot of times you're going to discover something you never would have otherwise.
Well, and so we're both, I think, eager to see what Rob Collins does at Royal Dornick. Rob Collins, the architect of Sweet and Cove, a place that you and I both love dearly. And like, I'm kind of like, maybe I should wait and plan my trip around his course at his, I guess, redesign of Royal Dornick being opened up and being playable. I mean, I don't have any plans to go in 2026 to Scotland or anywhere in the UK to play, but I cannot wait to see what he does. And it'd be amazing if they can manage to get a major. If they host an open there, that would be just incredible. You mentioned the memberships. Are you eager, or are you planning on joining anywhere over there? I know they do memberships for people that live in the States. Or is that in the plans?
I think down the road, maybe. It's just that I'm lucky as it is now to get over there like once a year. And I try to, like I said, I've got a few friends that live there now. So it's, they're gracious enough to let me bother them for a week or two. But if I knew, like if I had some sort of job where I was traveling to the UK all the time, maybe. I mean, there's, I know there's a golf course called Nairn that's over in Inverness, kind of around where Royal Dornick is. And I know their international membership is open, and it's not that expensive. I mean, you're paying like 600 pounds as of an initiation fee, I think it is. And then like it's 600 pounds a year after that. And it's not that much, it's like, it's very achievable, but it's like, if you've got the money to throw at that and go there once a year, good for you. But like for me, I don't know if I can really justify that. But I know I've definitely bugged my North Berwick friend a few times and be like, is membership open yet? And he's like, no, sorry, it's too popular. That's kind of the only drawback to some of this tourism, is that, like, if you aren't a member at some places, you'll never be. But it's definitely possible. I know that, that one of the buddies of mine that lives over there, he gave me the hack for it all. And he said, if you can join one of the Royal courses. There's a place in Wales called Royal St. David's.
Okay.
If you join a Royal, you get reciprocal at every other Royal course. And apparently that one's like maybe $400 to join. But then you can go play like, you know, Royal Liverpool or Royal County Down, like all the other
Oh
different
yeah. Okay.
Royals within the UK, and get like, you know, be able to get on. That's kind of like the one little hack that I'll give people.
Okay. That's really good to know. I need to file that away. I see you got a Glencairn. Is there Scotch in that, or is there what are we sipping on tonight?
There is Scotch in that. That is, it's a special release of, so there's a distillery on Isla called Brookladdy, and they make 3 different products. Just Brookladdy is like their flagship. They make Port Charlotte, and then they make Octomore. And this is a Port Charlotte. It's like a festival release called The Heretic. And I think it's like, was the oldest Port Charlotte they bottled at the time. But yeah, it's just super, super smoky. And I'm
So
into
you
that.
mentioned at the outset that you ended up over there for a whiskey festival, and I'm more of a bourbon guy. I've had a few scotches, but everything I've had's way too peaty for me.
Mhm.
Tell me, how did you get into Scotch? And I mean, to the point that I'm going to Scotland for a whiskey festival. Like, what was that evolution like?
Yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, the simplest answer is when we got married, we had to stock the bar party, and a friend of mine gave me a bottle of, at the time, I think it was like $100 a bottle or something, and I'd never spent that much money on like a bottle of bourbon or whiskey in my life. But he gave me a bottle of Macallan 15, like fine oak or something,
Okay.
and I just kind of sat it on the bar. I mean, you know, when I was in college, it was like Maker's Mark is what I drank. You know, it was just kind of easy to get and didn't taste bad, at least to me then. And then, you know, I was kind of into bourbon for a long time. When you had to stock the bar party, finally I got around to trying it. And I was like, oh, I like this, you know, and I had another glass of it. And then I went and looked up what it cost. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's why it
No
costs so
wonder it's
much,
so good.
it's so good. Yeah. And then I don't know, just was kind of a gateway into like exploring other things. And then I got more and more into peat, like the smoky side of stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to me because, you know, I think there's a perception that like Scotch is sort of more snobby and like elitist in different ways. And I think I'm also drawn to Scotch just because there's so much history behind it. Like a lot of these distilleries have been around since like the 1800s and like the early 1800s. And um it's fascinating to me because it's literally just 2 ingredients like barley and water and then yeast, and the way that they mature it and, you know, distill it just creates all these different flavor profiles, where I think sometimes bourbon is almost more nuanced, you know, like if you put a glass of Four Roses and a glass of like Stag, if they were the same strength in front of me, I might not be able to tell them apart.
Right.
But if you put like a glass of Lagavulin in front of me and a glass of Macallan, I could definitely tell you, you know, it's just that kind of, there's just a wide range of flavor profiles that you're going to find something that anyone likes.
And what is it in Scotch that causes that? I'm familiar with the bourbon. It's the where it sits in the rick house and age. And is that a similar process? And like we were talking about before we started recording, that's the joy of this podcast, is we're not even talking about golf right now. We're talking about spirits.
Sure.
But what is it about Scotch and that process that creates the different flavor profiles?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with like the shape of the still that they use and the way that like the vapors of the distillate kind of recycle back into the still as they distill it. A lot of it has to do with the wood that they mature it in. A lot of it has to do with you know, who's running the process. You know, they have a whole little like spirit safe where they kind of blend the spirit as it's being distilled, and they'll try it, and then they'll like, you know, crank some dials and stuff and make it, you know, push it different ways. You know, what's funny about the Scotch whiskey industry, that it really wouldn't be around without the bourbon industry, because you know, the Scotch as a people are very practical, and every single, I mean, not everyone, but like most, so the bourbon laws are that you have to use virgin oak, right? So once they use like an oak cask, that has to go somewhere else, and most of them go to Scotland, and then they mature whiskey in like what they call first fill bourbon casks, which means
Really?
it's been used to make bourbon one time, and then it can't be used anymore, at least
Right.
as far as I know the laws.
That's
So
correct.
then they'll ship it off to Scotland. A Scottish distributor, distillery, conglomerate, whatever, will buy the casks and then they'll reuse it. And so, you'll get like some of those bourbon notes in a first fill Scotch or a first fill bourbon Scotch, where it's like you get the vanilla, you get the honey, um, all that sort of thing. And then, there's a lot of like European oak, like sherry casks and Amontillado and stuff like that. And that's another part of what just makes the wide range of flavors between one product versus the next.
So Scotch doesn't have the guardrails that bourbon does, correct?
Well, I mean, and I might get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure Scotch to be Scotch has to be more than 40% alcohol, and it has to be matured for at least 3 years. Otherwise, it's considered like a liqueur or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some laws in it like that. There's not really I don't think they really have like bottled and bond as sort of a category, but as far as like the base, rules around it, and I think it has to be produced in Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old rule of bourbon in Kentucky.
Right. So I'm in Alabama, which is a controlled state. So if you're telling me to go grab a bottle of Scotch, that's not going to break the bank, something that for me to try to introduce myself to the Scotch world, what would you tell me to go grab?
Well, I mean, I'd say if you're a bourbon drinker and that's kind of your thing and you want to kind of like dip your toe into Scotch, I would look for something that's been matured in like a sherry cask or something that's like double matured. So there's
Okay.
a product called the Balvenie. The Balvenie is in the Highlands in a place called Dufton. And they're kind of like one of the mainstays of just, staple Scotch for most, well-appointed bars, but it's not typically peated. I think it's peated like 3%, something like that. So there's just like
Okay.
a very small wisp like in the background of it. But there's a product called like Doublewood, and it's basically like a blend of first fill bourbon and then like sherry casks, and they blend that together. And it's 12 years old, and I think it's like $60 a bottle, maybe a little bit more now, just with all this stuff going on in the industry. But that's usually a pretty good one. I'm really a big fan of Bruichladdich. They make unpeated Scotch, but it's produced on Islay. And the great thing about Bruichladdich is like the majority, I think all of their spirit is matured on the island. So you get that kind of a little bit of like maritime salinity thing in the background, even though it's not smoky, you kind of like I always say it's like my favorite Scotch to bring to the beach, because
Okay.
you can drink like a little bit of it neat and just smell the salt air. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I kind of taste the connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they have a product called the Classic Laddie. This is like a travel retail version of it, and there are no free ads, but
Right.
it's not peated and it's very approachable. And I don't know, a lot of the locals there apparently like it because it's not peated, because most of the whiskey made on Islay is.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'd say, if you're a golfer who is into Scotch or into whiskey, going to Islay is great because there is a world-class golf course there called the Macquarie. It is not easy. There's like a lot of like blind kind of, you got to hit it in the fairway shots, otherwise your ball's toast. But you can, visit 9-10 distilleries there now, and then go play golf, and go to another distillery and go play golf, and just make a whole week out of it. It's great.
You said 3,000 people is the population of that city or of that island,
I think it's like 3,000, 3,500. Yeah.
and 10
Yeah.
distilleries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's
the majority of the population works the distilleries.
that and tourism, like hotels, restaurants. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that's what Scotland's economy is. It's like, whiskey and tourism. And there's like a huge like bird watching contingent that go there too. There's like all these crazy different kinds of like seabirds and stuff that live there.
Yeah.
There's actually a funny thing. There's a place on Islay called the American Monument. And in 1918 and 1919, these two U.S. ships during World War I, I guess that would be, sank off the coast. And Woodrow Wilson went to Islay and dedicated this monument there to those two ships. And it's on this like point on the island called the Mull of O, O-A.
Okay.
And it's like just kind of this cool, like, handmade spire that's probably like 100 feet in the air, but it's on this like point in this cliff face that is just like, it takes about an hour to walk to from the parking lot. But it's just like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It's like just pure Atlantic Ocean as far as the eye can see from that point. It's great.
That's
Like there's just all sorts of crazy connections.
that's fascinating. So there's, I mean, with bourbon, there's the Pappies, and there's the if you get into the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection or Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, does the scarcity exist within the Scotch world, and are there products like that? Like if you can find it, then that's a big deal. And is there something you've had before that you drank and will never forget as long as you live, that you were like, oh my goodness, that was a life-changing sip that I just took?
Yeah, I mean, scarcity in terms of like brand is not really a thing in the Scotch world, but scarcity in terms of age definitely is. Like
Okay.
there's, I don't know, I think it's like Dalmore made like a 70-year-old Scotch. I'm
What?
pretty sure that bottle of whiskey
Insane.
costs, yeah, I'm pretty sure that bottle of whiskey probably costs in the 100,000s at retail. I mean, it's just nuts because there's only so much of it to go
Yeah, how
around
much
too.
is
'Cause,
left from the Angel Share?
I mean, probably 200 bottles, and
Okay.
that's like might be at cast strength. It might not be, but that's kind of like the thing with Scotch. Like the older it gets, the more expensive it gets, just because of that factor. It's like the longer it sits in the cask, it just evaporates. Um, there's a distillery on Isla. I keep talking about Isla, but it's like they call it Malt Disney World.
That's
But
fantastic.
yeah, there's some really cool shirts with that on it. But there's a place called Port Ellen that was mothballed in the 80s, and it was like this one of the old school distilleries that was still there forever. And like in the 80s, like blended Scotch became the fashionable thing to drink. So a lot of these single malt distilleries were just going out of business unless they were part of, or at least shutting down like commercial sales and only being like run to be in blends. And so this is one of those distilleries that is like legendary because it was like basically the best distillery on the island, at least when it was all the other ones closed down, at least in terms of that category, as far as I know. But they came out with like, Diageo owns it, and Diageo owns a tons of stuff, but
Mhm.
they would put out like a release every year where they would go into this archive of like casks that were 32, 34, 37 years old and bottle them at cask strength. And they would cost like $4,500 a bottle. And my wife and I got to go and do a Port Ellen tasting at Lagavulin, because Lagavulin is owned by Diageo. And we got to taste these like 32, 34, 35, 37-year-old whiskeys. And it was like if you've ever just taken a little bit of butter off of a knife and put it on your tongue and
Yeah.
like let it melt, it was like that, but drinking whiskey. It was like just like instant mouth-watering sensation. And it was the last tasting of the festival for the lady who was the distillery manager at Lagavulin at the time, and she was retiring. So she was like, "This is the last one of these I'm doing."
So we're doing it
So
big.
she basically just let us take, they call them driver drams, these little sample bottles. She let us just like empty the rest of the bottles and take these samples home with us. And I held on to those things for like at least 3 or 4 years after that, just drank them on special occasions. Like I turned 40 a few years ago, and I brought one out and like let people, have 2 sips of it because I was like, this vial is probably worth like $800, but we're gonna drink it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And I love, there's something neat about the spirits industry and people like her that are in those roles where they take those liberties. And I did a barrel pick with a friend, and we ended up at in a rick house at Woodford, and they thiefed out the Woodford Baccarat for us, and just they're like,
Oh
"Oh,
wow.
here, let's try this." And I was like, "That's like a $5,000 bottle." Okay,
Yeah.
with pleasure, I will gladly drink it.
I will say, I don't know if this is going to be a question of yours, but to me, there is a distinct parallel between doing a distillery tour and like playing golf with people you've never met before. Because I've seen in my experience, you go on these distillery tours and, you'll be there with a friend, and then you go into like the little waiting area, and there's other pairs of people that know each other, but you don't know them. And so it's so funny to me because people will just be standing around, like looking at the gift shop, blah, 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 not really talking to each other. And then you go on the tour, and then you come back and like everyone's had a couple glasses of whiskey, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, like you just chat them up for like the next hour while you're trying not to buy too many things. It's just so funny. And I think golf is super social that way too. Like by the end of 18 holes with people you've never played before, you're like, well, let me get your number.
Right.
Like we should play again sometime if you're ever in the area, that kind of thing. I love that golf and whiskey are kind of like greasing the social skids a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like you're finding this kind of shared affinity for something and in real time,
Yeah, no, you're that's a fantastic parallel. I was not going to ask that question, but you're right. Like you think about how quiet the driving range is, and
Yeah.
then the first tee, you get introduced to whoever it is you're going to play, and then by the time you make the turn, if they're fun, then
Yeah, that's true.
then the dialogue has opened up, and you're having fun conversations. You're talking about your family. You're talking about where you're from, what you do for a living. Yeah, you're dead on. And we've done a handful of trips to Napa and have been to the bourbon country a couple times and done tours there. And you're right, there's this kind of awkward uh aura in the air while everybody's
Like-
waiting around on the tour to begin, and then once it begins, then all of a sudden it ends and you're friends, so you're best friends.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, we did a tour at Silver Oak out in Napa, and the gentleman that led our tour, he was probably 90 years old, and he carried a bottle of Silver Oak with him around the entire tour. And if you got your glass tipped to where the last sip was going to run out into your mouth, he was walking towards you with that bottle. And before you could even get your glass back down, he was pouring more Silver Oak. My wife and I still talk about that wine tour, and we had a great time with those people we'd never met before. But yeah, you're right. That's a great parallel of golf and spirits and how they bring people together. And it evokes just conversation, right? Like it's
Yeah.
especially if you're playing somewhere you've never played before, or you're hosting somebody at a place that they've never played before, of talking about, oh, well, this hole is this, and you want to put this shot on the right side of the green because there's trouble on the left, those kind of things. Yeah, that's very well said. Shifting gears a little bit, I know recently you completed a 100-hole hike.
Oh yeah.
How did that go?
I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I knew a few people that had done it before, and they did it at Old Barnwell last year, and so it came around again that the Georgia section of the USGA, the GSGA, was doing their 100-hole hike at Old Barnwell, and I was like, I love Old Barnwell. Like, it's as close to not being in America playing golf in America that I've experienced. Like, I've never played Bandon, so I don't know. I'm sure there's some linksiness out there, but like you step onto Old Barnwell and like a few holes in, you're like, oh, I don't think I'm in South Carolina anymore. So when it came around, I jumped on the chance to do it. And I think if I do it again, I'll probably fundraise a little sooner because it was kind of a mad dash there to hit the goal, but I met it. It was fascinating though, because I mean, there were only maybe 30 people hiking that day, and have you played Old Barnwell?
I have not, unfortunately. I
Okay,
want to
so
play so bad.
It's incredible, but they have this like kids course, which I think is like 15 holes, where it's mainly like par threes, but there's some long par fours, like longish compared to the rest of the holes. But there's like a 280 shot and like a 300-yard hole or something. So they started us out there like at 7:45 in the morning, so it was pretty chilly in October. So you go out there and get your sea legs sort of, and we played about 20 holes on the kids course as a group of 4, and they were different groups. And about 9:45, they let everyone start going out on the main course. So we wanted to go over there and do that and get in as many loops on the main course as possible. So we played one loop on the main course. So we're like 38 holes in at this point. And on the next loop of the main course, we took a second just to grab a snack because you're just walking all day. It was all day walking. But we're like, okay, well, let's play a match, between the 4 of us, and 2v2 best ball. And I looked down 9 holes into this, second full loop on the main course of the day, and I'm 3 over. And I'm like, and Old Barnwell is not an easy golf course. And I was like, wow, okay. And I just hadn't even thought about it until then. And, I'm like around a 10.5, 11 handicap. I've never broken 80 in my life. And so I looked down at the scorecard and I'm like starting to do the math, and I shouldn't have done that,
Yeah,
but I started doing the math.
God.
I started doing the math, and I like get to the 13th hole. After 13, I'm 5 over, and I'm like, okay, so it's a par 73. If I just like par out the rest of these holes, I will break 80. And the 14th hole at Old Barnwell is like this 248, 50-yard drivable par 4. The problem is if you don't hit the green, there's like 18 bunkers around
Oh
it.
God.
And I was just like, oh, it's drivable par 4. I might as well drive the green. And ended up in a bunker, made a snowman on that hole. And so I was so mad at myself. I mean, I had walked all day and I was about to break 80 and just ruined it. But I was like, you know what? Damn it. I'm still going to try. I ended up shooting an 83.
With an
But
8. With an 8 on the card.
with an 8 on the card. And I birdied 17, parred 18, and made like a 15 footer to make par on 18. And I was just like, okay, I'll take it. Like, it was the best round of golf I've ever played, probably, with the 8 on the card.
Yeah.
Other
During
than
a
that,
100-hole hike.
Yeah. And so I think we were like 54 holes by that point. And so we just went and finished the rest of the walking on the kids course again until it was like dark outside. But it was so laid back. I'd say if anyone has a chance to do it, do it. It's such a good cause. It's benefits youth on course. They have a whole program where they let kids play for like $5 or less for a round.
wow.
It's just a way to get. That's their whole thing, right? They're trying to get kids into golf as soon as possible, and if they don't have the means, they make it happen. And I mean, I know that they've done it at some other amazing golf courses, and it's just a chance to get to go and do it at a place like that. And can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah. No, that sounds awesome. I've seen nothing but great things about Old Barnwell, especially all their philanthropic efforts, like you were saying. And yeah, I need to get over there. I want to experience it. And I did not know that it was so unique that you don't feel like you're in the United States. That's the first time I've heard that. So makes it even more intriguing now.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I studied abroad in Italy in college with one of the guys that designed that golf course.
That's
His name is
cool.
Blake. His name is Blake Conant. He used to work for Tom Doak for a while, and now he has his own company out in Oklahoma or something called like Dundee Golf. But when they opened Old Barnwell, I like went on the website and I was like, wait, I know that dude. So I connected with him on social media or something. I was like, hey, what's up, man? Never knew you were into golf. And he's like, oh yeah, North Berwick's like my favorite golf course in the world. And I was like, I'm like 20 years late to this. But yeah, it's just always like been kind of special for me in that regard, just having a little bit of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon connection to it. But yeah, the architecture is like just, it's got some quirk and some undulating greens. Like, you'd love it. It's the greens there are wild. But it's got these weird Victorian kind of berms running through the golf course. It look like these like kind of natural, kind of hazards instead. It's like the inverse of a bunker. It's like just a grassy wall sticking up.
Okay.
It's just, it feels like a heathland golf course. It's like you're on like in England somewhere. Yeah, it's just a cool loop too. It's like the way that they've used the land is really fascinating. But yeah, it's kind of that, and of the courses I've played in the U.S., it's like that and Chambers Bay are kind of my 2 favorite golf courses here.
Okay.
Again, kind of have that kind of linksy vibe to it. I don't know. I'm just drawn to that. That and Sweetens, obviously. I mean, Sweetens is kind of in its own little stratosphere up here, but
Right. We love the Cove. If you could put together a composite 3-hole stretch, any 3 holes you want to pick, what would those 3 holes be?
Composite, just 3 holes, period. Like,
and they can be all par 3s. They can be par is irrelevant. Any 3 holes that you could put together, what would they be?
Man, I think I'd have to play 13 in North Berwick. I mean, just the pit is just the most fun hole. I mean, honestly, they're just right there. But no, I won't cop out like that. I would say 13 at North Berwick. It's the pit. Again, you hit down, chip over the wall, try and make a birdie. Almost did this last time. I'd say the par 3 would be the 13th again at Muirfield. The thing about Muirfield is like the routing just continues to change. So like it's links golf course, right? But like
Right.
every hole is in a different direction.
Oh wow,
So
I did
like,
not know that.
yeah,
Okay.
it's like counterclockwise or clockwise. It's clockwise and then counterclockwise, I think. But basically, the wind is always different. Um, and the 13th is like this, 130, 140 yard par three with like the green up on a plateau, and it's just like depending on the wind, you're either going to hit a pitching wedge that just floats, or you're going to hit like a 7-iron that just is straight into the fan. Um, Man, the last hole is tough. I really like, I can't remember what it is. You know what? Just for the fun of it, I'm going to say the 10th hole at the Fields.
Okay.
You
So I
know?
have not been to the Fields. I had plans to go the weekend of the Auburn Georgia game this year, and those kind of fell apart. Tell me about the 10th hole of the Fields, because the Fields looks like a place that I would absolutely love. I like laid back, fun golf, and that seems to be what the Fields is all about.
Yeah. I mean, Ashley and his dad, Mike, they're just like the nicest people in the world. But I'd say, the issue with public golf in Georgia is there's not very much of it that's any good. Like there's some municipal courses in Atlanta that are like decent, but in terms of like finding actual golf course architecture that you can get on here, the
Right.
Fields is got to be in the top three. I mean, it's kind of a hike from Atlanta. It's a little bit closer if you live in Alabama in certain parts, but uh, just really good architecture, really thoughtful. Some really cool land movement in places. Some blind shots. I always like blind shots. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a masochist, but
You took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was going to
yeah.
say.
But the 10th hole is like this crazy, almost backwards hole where you're teeing up from a plateau and then you're teeing down to a fairway that runs out at about 215 yards into a lake, but it's a par
Okay.
five. So you have to hit like 5-iron off the tee. And then if you want to go for it in two, you have to hit like a 5 or a 3-wood onto the green. So it's like a backwards hole.
Yeah,
But
I dig that.
it's just, yeah, it's just like it's a kind of big risk reward out there a lot. The 15th hole I really like too, but that's mainly just because of the approach shot. I mean, there's just all sorts of golf holes out there that are really good. And I'd say if you haven't been down there, like hit me up, we'll go play and, just have a good time.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely take you up on that. What is your favorite club in the bag right now?
It kind of shifts around. It's probably my mini driver. I mean, I've got this crazy mini driver that's, so this Scottish friend of mine had it and he came over here and he works in golf. So he went to the PGA show and we went and we played, Sweetens, Augusta Country Club, Tree Farm, and Old Barnwell like a couple years ago.
What a trip.
And yeah, it was crazy. I asked off for work for that and it was great. It's like a super cool 5 days. But he has this like old TaylorMade mini driver on like an X100 steel shaft that he was playing with. And I was like, let me hit that thing. And I was like, that's kind of cool. It's like super heavy, but, I just liked it. And I was like, I want to kind of tinker around with that. So I took it to this club builder that I know in Decatur. And he was like, you want to do what? And I was like, I want you to put this X100 steel shaft in this like 2019 mini driver. He's like, okay. And so he actually ended up making a video about it on his YouTube channel. It's just super fun. It's like I play a half set a lot of the time, and it's just like the perfect kind of like I can hit it off the deck to answer your question later. Sorry to preempt that, but you can hit it off the tee, you can hit it off the deck. I've actually gotten pretty good at that. I think that's good. I play MP32s, which I'm probably not good enough to play, but who cares? I really like the 5-iron in that set.
Okay.
It's just like not intimidating to me really. And then just I like chipping 9-irons a lot. It's like kind of all this links golf. Just I probably just need like Cigar Don's like, dude, you'd be so good if you could learn how to chip. And I was like, yeah, I think
what
so.
a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
He's like, dude, you'd be like a 5 or a 6 if you could just chip. And I was like, oh, shut up. But no, I just like to hit bump and runs a lot just because it's reliable and I've gotten pretty good at the distance of it. So those three clubs kind of like bounce around. But yeah, man, I mean, anything that'll just land in the fairway is usually the one.
I'm the same way, but I think you're now like the 7th person that has said mini driver. And I have put one I'm hoping to get one for Christmas, which this will probably be after Christmas, but maybe I can add an addendum to the end of this recording that, hey, I did or did not get the mini driver that is on my Christmas list.
Right.
What's the favorite new course that you've played new to you in 2025?
There's like 2 or 3 that I would say. So I just got to play Broom Sedge a few weeks ago. That buddy of mine in Athens won the lottery to get like a tee time there. And he insisted I come with him. And I was like, all right. So I met him up there at like 6:30 in the morning. We kind of just drove out there and made a day trip of it. Amazing golf course. Like, I think when you're out there playing it at first, you're kind of like, yeah, this is cool. Like, and then you kind of reflect on it and it was like, wow, that was just different. It's kind of had this like there's this new kind of way of architecture of like naturalist bunkers and stuff like that. But that one felt, for the amount of land that they had, they used it really efficiently, and I really loved it. I think it just needs to settle in a little bit, like like any other place that's like brand new. When I was over in Scotland this past time, I played Kings at Glen Eagles. Glen Eagles is like this crazy, it's like the nicest resort in all of Scotland, but they have 3 golf courses there. They actually played a Ryder Cup there on what they call the PGA course, which is kind of just like, it's cool, but it's like any other country club in the United States. It's kind of very American. But they have this course there that was designed by James Braid, who it's called Kings. And it's like, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but when you're on a golf course and the scale just takes your breath away, like there will be like fairway bunkers that are just enormous, but they're 150 yards away, but they still look like a Pace Arrow, like motorhome, they're so big.
Yeah. I felt that the first time I laid eyes on Landman.
Yeah, it has that kind of thing. Maybe not as quite as open, but just incredible golf. Like anytime, if you go to Scotland and you can play James Braid golf courses, I've just become such a huge fan. His fairways are always crazy. And then there's another golf course there called Ely. It's actually called the Golf House Club at Ely is the proper name for it. But it starts with this blind tee shot on the first hole. That's a par 4, but you're teeing off over like a hill and you can't see where the ball is going at all. And so one of the members there, like years and years, like 100 years ago, donated, maybe not 100, but donated like this naval periscope to the starter shack. So before you go tee off, you look in a periscope at the green to make sure no one is there.
That is awesome.
It's wild. It's crazy. So
cool.
Yeah. And it's just it's a not expensive golf course in the grand scheme of things. It was like $100 to play, I think, but maybe 150, but it was just so cool. And it has like, oh man, that composite question. It has this one hole, the 10th hole, where it's a blind tee shot and it's a drivable par 4. And the green sits on this cliff edge with like a cliff wall and like a lighthouse or a buoy outside, like out in the ocean. But you crest this hill and all of a sudden you see the green down there at the bottom. And it's just like one of the coolest green sites I've ever seen.
Wow.
So I'd say those 3 golf courses were new to me this year, and they all definitely like rose up the ranks in terms of just what I've played. I don't really have a definitive list. I just know it's like North Berwick and Muirfield.
Yeah. It's Scotland.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, you kind of already touched on it, but one last question, and we'll get you out of here. Do you hit driver off the deck? I'm gonna have a clarification.
Oh, not mini driver.
Yeah, not mini driver.
Yeah, I will. It usually has to be a flat lie, I think, otherwise I'm just doing something dumb, which is probably dumb anyway, but I will. Yeah, it's usually like some sort of peeler. I haven't quite gotten the Adam Scott form down yet to hit a draw that way, but yeah, sure, why not?
Don't we all wish we had Adam Scott's form?
Exactly.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, waistline included.
His golf swing, like any number of things. Dave, thank you for taking time to come on. You sharing your insights about the traveling to Scotland and all the whiskey. That was incredibly informative to me, and something that I will I look forward to looking back on this episode as I look to go to Scotland, and I'm probably going to have to send you a few texts about where to go, where to stay. Can you introduce me to your friends?
Sure. Yeah.
But thank you for coming on. This has been a really enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, it was my absolute pleasure, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. For Dave Kuhn, I'm Josh Stecker. This has been another episode of Off the Deck.